Whole numbers begin from 0 and go on without end. The whole numbers 0 and 1 have some special properties. Let's take a look at these properties. Team A and Team B are playing a basketball game. After the first quarter, Team A was at 15 points and Team B was at 0. In the second quarter, Team A did not get any points and so their score was 0, whereas Team B scored 7 points. Now, let's find the total score of Team A after the first and second quarters and compare it with the total score of Team B after the 2 quarters. It's interesting to note that in both cases, we add a whole number and 0. Let's look at some examples of addition that involve 0. What do you notice when a whole number and 0 are added? When 0 and a whole number are added, the sum is the same whole number. In other words, if A is a whole number and 0 added to it, the sum is always A. So, 0 is called the additive identity of whole numbers. In the changing room of Team A, the t-shirts are hung up on the rail. There's a t-shirt on each hanger, and there are 8 hangers in all. So, how many t-shirts are hanging on the rail? We multiply the number of hangers, 8, by the number of t-shirts on each hanger, that is, 1. So we can say that 8 t-shirts are hanging on the rail. Similarly, in the changing room of Team B, we see 12 hangers, and on each hanger, there's 1 t-shirt. How many t-shirts are there on the rail? The product of 12 and 1 is 12, so we know that there are 12 t-shirts hanging on the rail in Team B's changing room. In each example, we have a whole number multiplied by 1. Here are additional examples of multiplication by 1. What do you observe? When we multiply any whole number by 1, we get the same whole number. In other words, if A is a whole number and it is multiplied by 1, the product is A. Hence, 1 is called the multiplicative identity of whole numbers. We've seen that in the first quarter, Team A scored 15 points, whereas Team B's score was 0. What is the difference in their scores? The difference is 15. Notice that if we subtract 0 from a whole number, we get the same number. So if A is a whole number and 0 is subtracted from it, the difference is always A. Can you guess which whole number, when multiplied by another whole number, gives 0 as the product? It's 0. Let's take an example. There are 5 players in the changing room and none of them is wearing a cap. How many caps are there in all? Obviously, the answer is 0. In short, if A is any whole number, then the product of A and 0 is 0. What is the result if 0 is divided by a whole number? The result is 0. Let's look at this with our basketball example. There are no bottles of juice in the changing room. We want to divide the bottles among 5 players. How many bottles of juice will each player get? The answer is 0, because there are no bottles of juice to divide among the players. In short, dividing 0 by any non-zero whole number gives 0. Now, let's say there are 4 bottles of juice and 1 player in the changing room. How many bottles of juice will the player get? Since dividing 4 by 1 gives 4, the player will get 4 bottles of juice. Look at these examples of division by 1. What do you observe? Division of any whole number by 1 gives the same whole number. In other words, when A, which represents a whole number, is divided by 1, we get A. Now, suppose there are 4 bottles of juice and no players in the changing room. Can we use division to find how many bottles of juice each player will get? Since there are no players amongst whom we have to divide the bottles of juice, division in this case is meaningless. So, when the divisor or denominator is 0, the result cannot be defined. In other words, for whole number A, division by 0 is not defined. Let's play a game.